Welcome to the Clashing of Steel. And so today I'm doing a introduction to light artillery. I mean, we all know this specific unit type. It can be really good, or as it is usually most of the time, it is rather useless and hard to position. If you take a look at what I have in my team, this is actually horrible. We have quite a lot of ranged units, quite a lot of ranged players. We do have some infantry units, or melee units so to say, but they're mostly down south of the map. So first things first, as it is with the light artillery. You want a good position where you can be useful. You preferably would take an open area, because that is where you might have the best chances of hitting something. You may also prefer the high ground, as it can change a lot. Or the third option is always going into the forest. I mean, forest is only good because it slows down your opponents and you can actually get quite good shots at them. Or you can just hide yourself from the view of the opponent, which can also be rather reasonable. So, first things first I'm gonna set myself up behind the infantry. I also play one unit of infantry because if I am left defenseless, I can at least try and manage myself if nothing else. But in this match, my infantry is gonna act more like an infantry than a defending unit. So, I already found my first target, or victim. They are pikemen. Excellent target, nobody wants to go close to them, and everyone keeps running from them, so I can shoot at them. I am even actually at the high ground, so I'll mostly keep shooting over my friendly troops, friendly swordsmen. From a game perspective, we have a big problem up in the north. We didn't have any scouts, artillery wasn't able to be useful until the elephants got close, and there weren't many other targets that were seen. So, with light artillery, your main focus should be form the infantry. Those are the best targets because they're usually packed tightly. Also, these pikemen were a great target for me to start because they were facing with the side, which means a single bolt went through a lot of troops. So, I'm still trying to focus on the pikemen, hoping to weaken them, but sadly they have gotten close to our pikemen and our pikemen are not very aware. What is a must-have with the light artillery are definitely the stakes. Some prefer caltrops, which can be debatable of course, but I prefer stakes because even if something should go wrong, in worst case you can put one of your light artillery engineers fight through the stakes in hopes of delaying your opponent and using the other one to destroy them. I'm not saying it will work perfectly, but at least it's some form of delay. So, from my point of view, I'm just using the stakes to make myself a nice decent spot here. Trying to just hold back my opponents, harass them as much as I can. Big problem with usually playing Arte is that horsemen will be around you and they can actually quite easily kill you if you don't have any defenses or any friendly troops that can defend you. And fortunately in this match I didn't have horsemen who were very aware of my presence, and they weren't very aware of me at all. They were like dealing with all the other nonsense, all the other archers and catapults and everything. So I actually got a bit of breathing room, although I am still very careful because I know there are horsemen somewhere about. My key focus right now is to reposition my artillery units. I'm gonna leave my swordsmen fighting because they're fighting through the stakes. And as long as opponents keep massing themselves onto me, I can actually hold it. My key focus right now is to deal with the upcoming swordsmen from the middle. I mean, these swordsmen of mine will still fight there, but my artillery will focus on those swordsmen that are almost facing my friendly Germanicus, I'm guessing. So, they even use the Studo. Perfect. They're slow and excellent targets for. This is one of those perfect locations where light artillery can shoot over friendly troops. That simply means I won't hit my troops and all the bolts will fly over them. But as the opponents get closer, so increases the chance of light artillery hitting your friendlies. And now I'm forced to move my swordsmen away because the pikemen were coming from the side. And there go the horsemen again, who actually, for some reason, still are yet not aware of me. And that Scorched Earth kinda didn't hit the mark, at least by my opinion, or by my standards. So, the main thing about light artillery is not hitting your friendly troops. Although you will most likely hit a lot of them because everyone wants to engage opponent, of course, or opposing infantry. And that can make your job very hard if you have nothing to engage, or nothing to shoot at. In this current situation, we are actually forced, so badly or so intensely that we kinda have to keep pulling back, and I kinda keep pushing back at opponents, trying to keep my retreats rather short or to a minimum. I'm hoping to build another bunker here, so to say. I have already put up 2 sets of stakes. And, well, I guess the pikemen got the hint. They're not welcome here. Actually, getting offense score with light artillery can be rather hard. Because you might be decent, you might do okay, but the score you learn will be below average. You scatter your opponents so heavily, you might even actually kill half of their unit or so. But the score compared to many other troops or many other units will be still rather small. As I said, light artillery's targets should be formed units, anything that is far away, that is slow, everything like that. At the same time, you also have to keep an eye on your units. What unit types are near you, what counters there are, what is lurking nearby. You might be forced out of your comfort zone, you might be forced in a certain direction that might be horrible for you. Instead of pushing my units out and running into infantry or worse yet even horsemen, I'm going to send them fighting against these pikemen through the stakes. Because as long as they keep fighting me through the stakes, I might actually have a chance to deal a decent amount of offense on my opponents. I simply know they could not survive one-on-one with the pikemen, but perhaps the stakes will kinda change the balance. They actually are kinda losing some of their health, which means I have a decent chance here. But they soon also realize that fighting me through the stakes is a horrible plan. And those 3 units of stacked spearmen have all been fighting my single unit of infantry. Everything seems to have worked out for me. I was actually planning to move my light artillery to the original first position where I do have the stakes, but for a second moment I thought I would go after the pikemen once again because they were so low. And my infantry can actually manage, and there is just so much infantry, and my biggest fear are still the horsemen. They are kinda not aware of me, but that is why I am just constantly unsure of where to move. Because horsemen are the main opponents that can easily take out my light artillery engineers. It probably didn't help that I got flanked, but since they are mostly all swordsmen here, the forest is a great place to delay them. They do get a lot of movement penalties in the forest, and I can kite them with one unit and keep an eye on them with the other. What I also want to point out here is that if there should be a horrible situation where you are forced into or disengaged from your friendlies in a position that you would not prefer, it is best to spread your light artillery units even if you plan to shoot on your opponents. As it is here, my focus now is the elephant. Although I do not suggest actually shooting elephants with light artillery, they can be reasonably good, but usually regular artillery or heavy artillery and javelins or pikemen can do the job just so much better. I mean, here was one elephant with just half HP left, so that's why I was focusing him. If I could get him low, he would not matter that much anymore. And now comes my ground jewel. The armored Legionnaires. This is like the best place for the light artillery to kite them. They are inside the forest where they get massive movement speed penalties. And light artillery can just harass them constantly. As I said, best targets are formed targets or slow targets that you can take your time to shoot at. Because if you're shooting at horsemen, they're gonna be running out of your aim direction, which is very important. And because of that, you might just be undeploying and redeploying your light artillery. The best targets are usually the ones that are coming for you, are formed, and are slow. They can be spearmen, swordsmen, or my favorite, the armored Legionnaires. Here I actually make one wrong assumption. I go after the infantry unit that is fighting with my swordsmen, and I assumed that one of the opposing infantry, or one of the opposing swordsmen, were going after my base, while instead they were actually going after my light artillery, which was deployed right now. Although I do get charged, he mostly charges into my light artillery units and into a corner of my unit in general. I still was able to undeploy and run away with most of my troops. Light artillery is one of the hardest units to play. First of all, you need a team who knows how to use you. because just running around all over the battlefield and trying to shoot at somebody who's getting engaged will not earn you any score, or even if it will earn you anything, or some score, you will mostly have to reposition yourself so much that you will be undeployed most of the time. Our light artillery is supposed to be the unit that can weaken the opponents before they get to infantry. But the big problem with that is that infantry usually goes running head-on against infantry. And so the usefulness of the light artillery just goes way down in most battles. As you have seen me mostly throughout this battle, I have been running around half the time trying to survive with the light artillery. They are an excellent tool if your team knows what you're doing. I actually managed to be somewhat useful in the beginning of the match, where I could harass the pikemen who actually did a lot of damage. As you saw, I was able to do a lot of damage to him in general, but I wasn't able to kill him. That is why the light artillery is good for weakening. It's like the elephants. It can do a lot of damage, but it isn't good at killing remnants. Personally, I would say you need at least 3 player group to make light artillery work perfectly. You need players who know how and where to utilize you, what and where to weaken, so that they can finish them off. But the sad part about the light artillery is that even if you're being useful, like I was here, I was being incredibly useful, but if we compare one of my light artilleries or swordsmen, my swordsman still earned more score. Light artillery can be incredible, as I said. It just needs a perfect target and a proper teamwork. Fortunately, my team was somewhat carefully afraid here, so I was able to pull back with my light artillery, delay and weaken the opponents. Although I did have to sacrifice my swordsmen in hopes of delaying some of those spearmen, it was still somewhat reasonable. One other way you can play light artillery is sacrificing your friendly troop. If there are a massive number of opponents engaging your, let's say, friendly sword infantry, just fire at that huge mass. I mean, the sword infantry is gonna die there anyway, so you might as well deal as much damage as you can as long as they are stationary. I really hate the horsemen. They have been my secret fear throughout this match. And since I don't have any more stakes, I am just staying here. I really don't want to leave this place. Then again, I don't want to stay here with 2 units at the same time. I would be too easy of a target. Too easy to manage, too easy to hit, too easy to kill. So I'm spreading them a bit. Actually wanted to send one of my engineers behind the base or up in the cliff, forcing opponents to retreat from that place. But sadly, it kinda gets disrupted midway there. And horsemen are already here, so I'm instead going to fight them if they're going to go after stakes. As I do know I'm gonna lose a lot of soldiers, at least that is an option that I can make. And the stakes I ran into, this was also my mistakes. There was just such a huge corpse pile. By my personal opinion, light artillery is one of the hardest, or probably it is the hardest unit type to play correctly, because it requires just so much teamwork, and the payoff with the mediocre work is total garbage. You might be extremely useful, but then again you're gonna earn somewhat meh score, so to say. If we would compare, let's say, 3 sword infantries, let's say Germanicus player, who killed 3 opposing swordsmen, let's say the score of him would be like from 2000 to 4000 points. While the light artillery weakening those opponents would probably have 1000 points, even if he weakens all of them to maybe half of their health. The payoff for your work as light artillery is just horrible. That is why I usually don't play it as much. I mean, light artillery could be incredible if he could just put out more damage or earn more score for the tasks that he does. But in this current state, I would suggest playing light artillery only if you know how to manage yourself, position yourself, and are very aware of your surroundings. Also, learning with a great team can help you very much. Grouping together with your friends and trying to make the most of it. You will still be kinda meh on your scoreboard, but at least you'll be useful in weakening those opponents, and your team members can at least get some score. I know it sounds ridiculous, but that's the state the light artillery sadly is currently in, at least by my opinion. So the match is pretty much over. We won, thanks to the artillery that is running away. Unbelievable, I know. And let's head over to the scoreboard. So I did really well for a light artillery. Although 40 or 45% of the score is mostly thanks to the swordsmen I had with me. They were just fighting against those opposing spearmen so aggressively, so effectively. And those opposing spearmen who were played by Legionnaires didn't get much, as their reward for that naive aggression was nothing. The opposing horsemen, who I was very afraid of from the beginning to the very end, pretty much were the second in the opposing team. They did really well. They were fortunately Alexander, so I actually had some decent chances in fighting them in melee. The opposing pikemen were somewhat aggressive as well. They could have actually destroyed me. They were actually forcing me really well, but they just couldn't manage themselves as well as I did, so I actually could force them to fight me in my preferred locations and situations. Well, maybe not preferred, but in reasonable locations and situations. The opposing team's second best Germanicus player was the one coming after me with armored Legionnaires in the forest when I was escaping before the very end. I did manage to harass him. He made it easier for me because he jumped into the forest. Perhaps easy isn't the right word, because I still would have preferred to have some vision from friendly troops, but I mean, I had the advantage of disengaging him there a lot better than on the open ground. And of course the elephants, who wreaked havoc in the beginning, but were surprised by my light artillery in the forest when they thought they could actually destroy our infantry. That was a small surprise for them, and I think with his last remaining elephant, he realized that that was not a good spot to be. From my team's best Germanicus player got some support from me for a brief period. Also, I tried to help the pikemen in my team by weakening the opposing pikemen, but sadly my pikemen were, I guess I could call, garbage. And actually, in the end, the best Germanicus in my team came to my aid when I was running from the armored Legionnaires, which was very good. I could actually weaken them with my light artillery, position myself in a good position. But there was just so much infantry in the opposing team, while we had, I think it was basically half theirs. Still, we managed to win it through incredible odds by the artillery unit that escaped. It was a rather intense match, and instead of artillery, I guess we could have used another full infantry. So I hope this gave some insight about the light artillery, how to play it. Not so sure about positioning, because it all depends on the situation and can be hard to manage. But the main focus with this unit is teamwork. You can't be totally useful. Like, even I was here, this was beyond over any other usefulness I have been. I was forced so often. As usual, as light artillery, you are not allowed to do your job, and this score here is probably one of the best I have gotten without doing massive base decapture. But anyways, don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching.